Welcome, everybody, to episode number 1 of the podcast here. Of course, it is Mr. Enforcer Sports, or if you know me in the real life, of course, my name is Trey. Today, I am joined by my buddy here, who I'll have him introduce himself in a second. But today, basically, what we're going to be doing is going over every single team in the offseason. We're going to talk about the wins that they had and the L's that they also had as well, and which teams got themselves improved from the previous season, and which teams kind of took a slide and a step back and kind of are looking towards rebuilding or not as good as they were last year. So, can you introduce yourself, my guy?
Yes, hello, my name is Jake. I'm a good friend of Trey's and also just of basketball in general. I'm glad to be jumping into this to, see your take on these offseason moves and just kind of talk about and see how this is going to affect this year's season. And let's do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the first team that we have, of course, is the Atlanta Hawks. Some things that they did this offseason was they did acquire Tony Snell from Detroit with a trade. They did sign their 6th overall draft pick and, of course, their 50th. And some of the key free agent signings they had was Chris Dunn, Danilo Gallinari, Solomon Hill. They got a two-way contract player, Nathan Knight. And then, obviously, they also got Rajon Rondo. And they had some players leave. Nothing too crazy. I mean, Vince Carter retired. Dwayne Dedman was involved in the Tony Snell trade from Detroit. And that's basically about it. They also, Scala Lavissiere also left the team, but wasn't that big of a deal anyways. So what are kind of your thoughts on how the Hawks are going to be looking this year?
I think one thing they're going to be I would put them as a mid-tier team now. Even, but more of like the lower side of that mid-tier. And the fact that you sign solid players like Chris Dunn and Danilo Gallinari. They're you have another guard to add to the lineup, maybe as a 2 as well. Gallinari, a guy who can be that power forward for you, but also is able to shoot. Solomon Hill, just a great probably bench piece or rotational piece. And also you have I don't know much about Nathan Knight, so I can't really say anything on that. But when it comes to especially Rajon Rondo, you add that layer, that veteran presence that he brought with the Lakers, even though half of that team was probably on their way about retiring. They were just there like, hey, LeBron's here, we're going to get a ring. But Rondo brings that veteran presence, especially for Trae Young, and that guy who can kind of really, lead this young talent into, doing something great. Because you look at their lineup from up to down up, whatever, side to side, east, west, north, south, but it's solid. But it's going to take time for these pieces to gem together.
Yeah, that's good. I agree with that, man. Like, looking at, even if we just look at like the free agents that they were able to sign, like I like how you talked about Rondo and you've seen like what he was able to do in the bubble, how LeBron was able to get off the court, Rondo was able to facilitate and kind of lead the team. So LeBron didn't have to worry about that as much. Also, when they played together. So I think Rondo's a huge plus for them. Danilo Gallinari, who was with the Oklahoma City Thunder last season, who averaged 18.7 points a game as a starting small forward. I'm not sure if he'll start or not. Will be interesting to see. I would assume, just looking at their roster, that he would be the starting small forward for the team. So, and then Chris Dunn is a solid like third guard on the team. I'm not sure how much he'll be playing though. Obviously, with Trae Young and Rondo, taking most of the minutes with the guard position at point guard. He could see some time at shooting guard, but I wouldn't like it to have like too many small guys on the team for the Hawks, because I just don't think that'd be good for him. I do think that with the addition that they were to have with Rondo, with Gallinari, with Chris Dunn, that they're going to be a playoff team next year. I just see that they also got a really good guy in their the 6th pick overall.
Oy.
So I just think they'll be a lot better this year than previous years. But I think it might take them a second to kind of start gelling together, because they are a super young team. And I think Rondo will definitely have his presence be felt, being kind of the veteran leader, and same with Gallinari.
I would disagree with you on a little bit. You saying a playoff team, I feel like there's a little high hopes. Maybe they sneak into the 8th seed. But I think since the fact that this is such a young team, that it's gonna take at least. I mean, especially Trey. Like it's safe to say that last year he pretty much carried them,
Right.
and he needs to, and he pretty much led the show. So you're gonna have guys like Rajon Rondo, Chris Dunn, and Gallinari coming into the fold, and things are gonna be shifting. The way of playing, how you attack, and strategy-wise, game in and game out is gonna change. But I think that's gonna take time. They catch fire somewhere where they able to catch the A seed, but I don't really see them moving towards the playoffs like that.
So if you look at the 8 teams that made it last year, so in this order from 1 to 8, we had the Bucks.
I would
because like I don't see the Magic going back to the playoffs. I don't think the Pistons will either. They got significantly worse.
Yeah.
So take them 2 out.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, sorry, I was looking at the wrong year. My bad. The Magic were 8th seed. I don't see them going back. I don't see the Pacers going back. They lost a couple people. I could see the Hawks getting like that 6th seed. I just think Gallinari and Rondo's presence are going to be extremely big. Plus, if you look at they went 20-47 last year, obviously with the shorter schedule. Because of the Ro-Ro. Because that's the word we got to say. We can't actually use the actual term, or you will get demonetized. But so obviously with the Ro-Ro, the season was shortened to about 67 games for some teams, and also the Hawks didn't even get invited to the bubble, so they haven't played actual competitive basketball since March. But I don't know. I guess my opinion, I just think the Hawks will sneak into it. So going ahead to the next team, we have my favorite team, which I know a lot about, my Boston Celtics, tied with number 1 now, all time. We'll get to your Wizards here eventually, and how they're gonna do.
Plastic Celtics fans.
Yeah, remember a couple years ago how we beat you guys in
Brad
7.
Stevens, no. Shut up. I don't care. Nah, bro. Is Kelly Olynyk on that team? I don't think so. So it doesn't count.
Not anymore. Jake's a little salty because our 2 teams played each other 3 years ago, and Kelly Olynyk started shooting like Stephen Curry in Game 7 against the Wizards in 2017, and we came out with the dub. But so some things about the Celtics that we did this offseason. Of course, we signed all our draft picks, which was the 14th overall pick, the 26th, and the 47th. We had some good signings in Emil Jefferson, which I'm going to be honest, I don't think he'll be there that long. We had Jeff Teague from the Hawks. I think that he's a very solid backup guard as well. And we did go ahead and get Tristan Thompson from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we got a couple people that left. We had Enes Kanter, who we traded to kind of begin the offseason. Of course, we had the sign-and trade with the Charlotte Hornets with Gordon Hayward. And then Brad Wanamaker had left us and went to the Warriors. So I guess I'll start this one since this is my favorite team. I can kind of give you the grasp on how I think we did. So last year we were a 48-24 team. We were a 3rd seed, and we lost in, I believe, 6 games to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. I personally think we'll do better. I think that when we have basically almost the same exact team. I think it sucks a little bit that we lost Enes Kanter, just because I think he's a great double-double guy, but I think Tristan Thompson will kind of fill that role pretty good as well. So looking at the roster, of course, we still have Jaylen Brown. I hope Taco Fall gets some more points this year too, or some playing time. We still got Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker still on the team, Robert Williams. So I think we'll do really, really good. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say this pushes us to the 2nd seed, because last year the Raptors were the 2nd seed and they had about 5 more wins than us, but I think they got a tiny bit worse since losing Serge Ibaka. But I see us kind of going in that 2nd seed of around 50 to 55 wins. I can see us getting. So what's your take on my team and how we did in the offseason?
I mean, I think y'all did well. Y'all just kind of switched, Ernest Kanter for Tristan Thompson. I definitely say I would choose Ernest Kanter over Tristan Thompson any day. but I think it was more a thing he had to settle with because, when you look back at the time that he had in Cleveland, there was really nothing, spectacular about it.
Whoa, pause.
There
He
was a
had
lot of
some
just
he had some good times in Cleveland. He helped that Cavs team win that title.
I mean, but yeah, but I would also say that was just up to LeBron.
I mean, even last year he had his best season. He averaged 12 points and 10.1 rebounds, which is
fair. But I think we'll see what happens. And I think Jeff Teague is always a dude that's been like a solid player throughout the league. Definitely going to be providing good minutes off the bench. Jeff Teague just kind of seems like the guy, like he's just, he's not really, in a sense, he's a good defensive player, but like he just looks like a second version of Avery Bradley when it comes to that signing. You're gonna have but we'll see.
Just without the defense.
I have a little bias because I'm not a fan of the Celtics. Because anytime, I'm sorry.
I was saying that Jeff Teague is. I want to compare him to Avery Bradley because his defense isn't nearly close to Avery Bradley. I think offensively he was a better player. But I think he's good. He's just good overall for us.
I meant in a sense. I meant this. Yeah, which is fair. I don't know. I just think it just kind of seems like I'm saying like the type of player in the sense like, you're getting a backup guard who's pretty good. That's like, and I was just like Avery Bradley for y'all a couple years ago. But I think y'all have a very solid lineup. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum just gonna do their things, and it's gonna be fun to see Taco fall because it's Taco fall.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I could agree with that. That's pretty good. So moving on to the next team. We have the Brooklyn Nets. So the Brooklyn Nets, what they did in the offseason was they acquired Bruce Brown in a trade from Detroit and Landry Shamet in a trade from the Los Angeles Clippers. They had one draft pick, which was Reggie Perry with the 57th overall pick. Free agency, they honestly didn't do much at all. They just signed an undrafted guy named Jordan Bowden. And they also signed Jeff Green, which I think that was a big pickup for him, actually. Big players that they lost. Maybe Wilson Chandler. Mm-hmm. And, they had Jamal Crawford, but he's towards the end of his career. So they're basically the same team, but also they're going to be getting a healthy Kyrie Irving, which would be good because he did not play much last season. And of course, they get back one of the best players in the game with Kevin Durant, coming off that Achilles injury back in the finals a couple years ago. So where do you think the Nets stand on terms of like how their roster is going to be looking?
Their roster has a lot of upside. From top to bottom, you have Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan, even though he's a little on the older side, but it's still DeAndre Jordan. And then, of course, you have the return of KD. Mm-hmm. And, injured or not, KD is one of the best players in the league.
Facts.
Even though hit that ball spot ain't the best thing in the league right now. I was watching the preseason game, bro, and that joint was glistening off the lights, bro. While they were playing, I was like, yo, it was. But fair enough. He's not like LeBron where he's hiding it. He's going with it, which I appreciate. But like, man, you make all that money, you can't get that situated, KD. Like, come on.
Facts. Even before that, that hair was never it. I agree though. Even though I'm a Celtics fan, like I don't hate Kyrie. Like obviously, I wish he didn't say he was going to resign, but I'm not like I still really like Kyrie. He's one of my favorite point guards in the league. So last year, Kyrie, he played in only 20 games. Obviously, he started all 20. He did average about 27 points a game, which was a couple points higher than his time while he was in Boston. And then KD was looking pretty good in his debut of the preseason against the Wizards the other night. I'm not sure how much he dropped, but he's looked pretty solid. I was never really worried about KD Achilles because he's someone that doesn't rely on athleticism like John Wall would. He's more obviously of a shooter, and he kind of just does his own thing. He doesn't rely on like explosiveness or stuff like that. So not much really that went on with him. I think Jeff Green is a nice pickup from Houston. that can kind of fill like Durant's spot
Definitely.
when Durant's off the court. Because Jeff Green last season, he played for 3 teams it looks like, and for the most part, even with Houston, even in the bubble, he was able to average about 12 points a game off the bench, which is really nice. So add that with Kevin Durant, Kyrie. They also got Landry Shamet, who I think is going to be extremely underrated coming into this because you cannot leave him open. They still have Karis LeVert from my Michigan Wolverines. They got Spencer Dinwiddie, who can always win 6th Man of the Year any year. And I just think overall that's going to be tough. They got Joe Harris back. They did re-sign him in the offseason to a nice little deal. They got Jarrett Allen, the great defensive monster down low. And that's going to be a scary team come playoff time, man. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. It's just hoping that all this works together well. That's really it. It's just a lot of upside. That's really it right now, but we just gotta see it in action.
I feel it. Yeah, see how they kind of work together. Next we got the Charlotte Hornets. They did a lot this offseason. So they did obviously acquire Gordon Hayward in a trade from my Celtics. They obviously did sign LaMelo Ball with the 3rd overall pick. And then free agent they signed were honestly just undrafted people and a couple 2-way contracts they did. So nothing crazy there. People that left them was they had Dwayne Bacon leave them, which, I mean, let's be real. That's not going to do much anyways. Willie Herman Gomez and Nicholas Batum, which they need to get rid of that contract anyways because that's a yikes. So basically they have the same roster, just added a couple people in Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball. I'm not sure how I feel about this team. Like I'm curious to see how LaMelo's gonna do. I think he'll do fine. I don't think he'll win Rookie of the Year. I think that probably will go to like Anthony Edwards or James Wiseman, but he could though. He could. I won't say never, but I don't know. I just don't see this team doing very good still next season. Like, Gordon didn't have a terrible season last year for my Celtics. He did deal with some injuries pre-Roro, but like, I don't know. Last season, he averaged about 17 points a game, and he's played about 52 games in the season. And then they still have some great young talent still in Miles Bridges. They're able to keep obviously still. They got Devontae Graham, who I really like as a young player. They got the explosive Malik Monk, who will put you on a poster quickly. They got Scary Terry Rozier, who you know very well from that 7-game series.
No, he doesn't deserve that name. He doesn't deserve that name. No. There's only one Scary Terry. Okay.
You talking about Jason Terry?
I'm talking about the Washington football team. Okay?
Oh gosh, we won't talk about that franchise yet. That's for another video.
Terry McLaurin is the only person. Hey, who's top of the NFC East?
You guys will get bounced out the first round, kind of like anyone else in our division would. But that's basically all I have though for the Hornets. I just don't think they'll be a very good team next year. I think they'll continue to stay at the bottom next year. Probably around the 13th seed, maybe 12th at the highest. But I just don't see them being a very good team at all. You have any input on the Charlotte Hornets at all?
Not really. The only thing is, next year I could get all the Ball brothers together, so that would be cool. That would be kind of
Lonzo, and then the recently waived LiAngelo Ball. So all right, so that's enough with the Hornets.
I mean, they're not really that interesting this year. So
yeah, have they ever?
Sorry,
sorry if you're a Hornets fan. Another team that's not going to be really interesting to talk that we'll spend probably a minute and a half on is the Chicago Bulls. So they were able to get Patrick Williams with the 4th overall pick. And also signed, they got the 44th pick, which they also signed too. Free agents they were able to sign were, they got an undrafted guy. They did get Noah Vonleh, which is kind of a decent pickup. They got Garrett Temple from the Nets. Players leaving, obviously they lost Chris Dunn to the Hawks. And that's all that really matters. I just don't see this team being good at all. I think they'll suck just as bad as they did last year, if not worse. Well, it can't be much worse. They only won 22 games. But yeah, I really just don't have much. I think they should trade Thaddeus Young, though, and try to trade Zach LaVine and just rebuild. But that's me. So you have any thoughts about the Bulls?
I mean, you have like kind of, bruh. I know the one thing with the Bulls last year is that they got injury prone. They got the injury bug. Because when Larry Markkinen, Kobe White, when their kind of core guys weren't injured, they were decent and they were playing decent basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But that all happens, and they're kind of put in a position where it's like like you said, blow everything up or kind of just see what happens. So it's a lot of ifs for the Chicago Bulls right now. They're in a weird position where maybe they can get like a mediocre season off or absolutely be a dumpster fire. So
yeah, Laurie did average about 15 points a game, and he played 50 out of all 50 games he was able to play in. He did start all of them too.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I just personally think they should trade Zach LaVine to another team and try to get a draft pick out of him, like maybe a first round pick out of him, and maybe a second on top of that, plus a player or two. Because I like Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is really nice and underrated. He just plays for the Bulls. Last season, he did average 25.5 points a game. So shout out to Zach. So that's enough with the Bulls. We don't want to add too much time to the podcast with a team like that. Another team that we'll quickly go over is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're on a little downside of this right now.
I feel so bad for Kevin Love.
Yeah. Hashtag get Kevin Love out of here. He needs to be on a different team.
Bro, that dude just got dumped there and they left.
Trade him to the Lakers. So with the Cavs, they acquired JaVale McGee with a trade from the Lakers. They did obviously get the 5th overall pick, who did look pretty nice, though, not gonna lie. And then free agent signings, all nobodies. We're gonna be honest. I'm not even gonna. I mean, they got Don Maker. That's the only noticeable name that they did have. James Matthews though, from Michigan, for my Wolverines. So shout out to him. And then they did lose Jordan Bell. Actually, they traded him to the Lakers. And they obviously lost Tristan Thompson and then Zizic as well. So I think this team will be the worst team again in basketball. I think this would be the season they should look to trade Kevin Love and really try to integrate all these young asset players into playing with each other. I am looking forward, though, to seeing how Colin Sexton's going to do in another year for him. But yeah, that's all I got. I mean, trade Love. I mean, they do got Andre Drummond, but again, last year they won 19 games. They lost 46. So that's all I got for the Cavaliers, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, enough. I mean, I don't know. You can't really do much with the lineup with Matthew Dellavedova, Andrew Drummond, Larry Nance Jr., and Kevin Love. Like, ooh, Colin Sexton. Ooh,
I'm scared of that.
They're not. I feel so bad, bro. This is just happens when you're part of a LeBron James team. You get
Post LeBron.
You're good for a couple years, then once he leaves, ghost town.
Facts. Except for the Heat. Heat did pretty good though without him. They went to the playoffs.
I mean, that's true, but then it did definitely take him time to rebuild to the point where they are.
Facts.
But like that's like where the Cleveland Cavaliers are. Like, bro, like I said earlier, I feel so bad for Kevin Love. He was so excited when he came here. He won a ring, and LeBron and Kyrie decided to dip. And now he got to deal with Larry Nance, Colin Sexton.
Yeah, we need to get Kevin Love out.
Dellavedova.
Get him out of here. He averaged 17 a game last year. We can round up to 18. About 10 rebounds a game. And he played about 56 games. So,
get my man out of here.
Yeah, trade him. Lakers, do what you got to do. Next team, actually a team that's actually pretty interesting to talk about, mostly because I only like one dude on the team. So we got the Dallas Mavericks next. They did acquire James Johnson. I think he's a black belt too. From Minnesota. And they also got Josh Richardson from Philadelphia as well. I think those are pretty solid pickups. They had the 18th overall pick, the 31st, and the 36th, which they did sign all 3 players. They got basically nobody's in free agency. You don't have to worry about who they got. Leaving's actually kind of the other thing I want to kind of discuss. So they did release JJ Barrera after like 15 seasons basically on the team. Dude played a long time. He was there when they won their championship. If it tells you, that's what, 9 years ago. They did trade Seth Curry away to Philadelphia, which I'm not sure about that. They traded DeLon Wright. They traded Justin Jackson. They also had Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who has the top 5 worst jump shot I've ever seen in my life. And that's it. They obviously still have Luka Doncic. You know, they got Kristaps. They got Willie Cauley-Stein, so shout out to him. I'm not sure how I feel about this team. Like, I love Luka. I think Luka's going to be an MVP candidate, if not like the favorite to win next year, along with Giannis, maybe AD. But like, I don't know how I feel about this team. Like, let's see, what did they finish last season? Last season they were 7th seed. What were you saying?
I think so. No, I continue. No, I was just agreeing with you. I was saying, like, yeah, I think so. Like, you know, to them being the 7th seed.
Yeah, 7th seed. They went 43-32. They did lose to the Nuggets, I believe in 6 or 7. They lost to the Clippers in the first round before the Clippers did what they did. I just don't know where this team goes. Because I love Luka. I mean, last season in his second season, he averaged 28.8 points a game, 10 rebounds and about 9 assists. So fantastic. I love Luka. And just the rest of his team, I don't know, dog. Like, and they got Kristaps, and Boban, but like, I don't know. It's gonna be. I think they'll probably sneak into the same like 7-8 seed around there, but I just don't. They just didn't improve. In my opinion, they got worse. Losing Seth Curry and what do you think?
I mean, yeah, it definitely got worse. I would definitely, first off, pay respects to JJ Barea.
Facts.
For his time there. I don't know if you saw this, but Mark Cuban actually paid forward, like, is paying his salary for this season, like the 1.5.
Oh, that's dope.
Like, so he's releasing them, but he's still gonna get paid for this season.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think it's like $1.5 million over the course of the year. So he's still getting paid, but like, shout out to Mark Cuban for that. There's really nothing, like you were saying, like there's really nothing eye-opening here. They kind of have generally the same lineup, of course, with the loss of Seth Curry. They're kind of at a point where, I mean, because you can't even say that it's really Luka running the show with Kristaps Porzingis, being right with him, and everybody else is just kind of catching along. I mean, you have moments of brilliance from everybody, but not enough to where you can say, yeah, they can get like a 5-4 seed and make it to the second round, and possible hopes for a conference finals. Like, to me, this just seems like a team that makes first round and dips. Like, this is not doing much.
It's just tough because they pushed the Clippers the 6 games. And that was a tough 6 games the Clippers had to fight for. And it seemed like the moment Kristaps went down, like, it was over. Like, Luka did the best he could, but I think it's just tough, man. I don't know. I think that the team could possibly go to a second round because I think Luka is that special that he can control the game that much and control a series, but it's tough, man. I don't know. We'll just have to see about the team. So next up, a team I actually really enjoy watching, definitely last year, is the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets obviously did lose in 5 games, I believe, to the Los Angeles Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. They did end up signing RJ Hampton with the 24th overall pick. And then people they signed was JaMychal Green from the Clippers. I think that's a pretty solid pickup, off the bench. He's a solid player off the bench. They did have Mason Plumlee leave. They did have Torrey Craig. He went to Milwaukee. Jeremy Grant, they did have leave in free agency as well. So a couple people, I really wish they could have kept Jeremy Grant, but I think that's an L losing him. But the team's still pretty solid overall. They got Wilt Barton, Bobo, JaMychal Green, Gary Harris. They were able to re-sign Paul Millsap. Nikola Jokic still is on the team. Monte Morris is solid. Of course, Jamal Murray, and someone I'm really looking forward to is Michael Porter Jr. in this season coming up here. So what are your thoughts on the Nuggets of how they're going to look this year?
Yeah, first off, I want to say Michael Porter Jr. is in the running for Rookie of the Year this season, right?
No, he's been playing a couple years.
No, that's it. That's
unless your flight,
like this dude always. Yeah, no. Bro, because like the running joke is always like Michael Porter Jr.'s like they don't play him a lot. Like he's always still coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Even this year he got a lot more playing time, but he's like it just seems like he's still a rookie.
I mean, very technically he was last year. Because he didn't play at all his first season.
Yeah. And
that's how Blake Griffin was. He didn't play much. He didn't play at all his first year, and then he won Rookie of the Year, technically his second year. But he did. Michael Porter looked solid in the bubble. In 55 games, he started 8 of them, and he put up about 10 points a game off the bench. So I'm excited to see him. I'm also really excited to see if Jamal Murray is going to be the same player he was in the bubble. Because obviously Jamal Murray took giant strides into in the bubble. I think he turned into an all-star type of player. Definitely in the bubble for sure. Last season, Murray averaged about 18.5 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, shooting about 35% from 3. I think that will go up for sure. So I'm excited to see how he's going to do. And obviously they got the Joker, Nikola Jokic on the team as well. So moving on to another team we'll talk about for probably 3 seconds is the Detroit Pistons. Maybe the worst team in the Eastern Conference next season. Not looking forward to watching them at all if I don't want to. So they did acquire a couple people, but you guys don't have to worry about who they are. They're nobodies. Draft pick wise, they did get the 7th overall pick, the 16th, and the 19th, which is kind of cool. They did sign Leandro Ball, but they did actually recently release him as well for whatever reason. I think a big plus side though was able to get Jeremy Grant off the free agent too. They did sign Jahlil Okafor, which I mean, it's Jahlil Okafor, and Mason Plumlee. They actually had a lot of people leave. So goodness, they had Luke Kennard. Obviously, they traded him to the Clippers. They traded Tony Snell away. Let's see else. John Henson, Thonmaker left. Jordan McRae, Derek Walton Jr. from Michigan left. And the biggest L, I think, by far is Christian Wood. I'm not sure how much that you know about Christian Wood. But he was a very solid player for their team last year. Averaging about 13 points a game and 7 rebounds in 62 games. That's a big L that they took there. So that's all I honestly got. I mean, they still got Blake Griffin. And Jeremy Grant, but outside of that, I think this team would be one of the worst in the Eastern Conference. Hashtag get Blake Griffin out of Detroit. Also, they do have Derrick Rose, so let me not put too much disrespect on the team. Shout out to Derrick Rose as well. So we'll just so we'll move on from that team because we don't want to spend too much time on some of these bum franchises that's currently going. Next team, we have a very interesting team. We got the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, they were able to get Kelly Oubre Jr. from the Phoenix Suns. They, of course, had the 2nd overall pick where they signed James Wiseman. Free agent-wise, they were able to pick up Kent Bazemore, which is pretty solid. They got Brandon Wanamaker from my Celtics. Don't care about who left on the team. And then obviously Klay Thompson went down with an Achilles injury, so they won't be having him back. I think this team will be interesting. I don't think they'll be as good as they were back in 2016. Obviously they're in the post Kevin Durant era, but I think this team could get like a 4 seed in this upcoming season. Steph Curry last night, and making this video yesterday was his first preseason game where he dropped 29 points, looking just like he did before. So I'm excited to see him. Obviously, Draymond Green's coming back as well. I'm really curious to see how Andrew Wiggins is going to play with Curry and Eric Pascal. I think he was a good player last year for him. I have this team being like a 4 or 5 seed. I have them making the playoffs and doing pretty solid. What's like your thoughts on how Golden State's what they did and how they'll be looking?
I mean, I definitely agree with you. What you said, there's a lot of still question marks because, Steph Curry is going to be without Klay Thompson. He has some good pieces around him, but it's definitely not compared. When you have Durant and Klay Thompson with you, but James Wiseman is going to bring an aspect of their game that they really haven't had, and that is a really talented big man. Andrew Wiggins is still a question mark. There's still, in a sense, if you can even say like upside to him, but there's opportunities where he can play well. I mean, I know one thing. I think they should change the name to the Light Skin Warriors because I was watching them coming out of the tunnel yesterday, and I was like, "Yo,
got all the light skin brothers."
Steph Curry, bro, you need to chill, bro. Bro, they got Kelly Oubre.
Yeah.
Bro, you got Kelly Oubre, Klay Thompson,
Curry,
and Curry on one team, bro. Yo, hide your girls.
Facts. They're coming.
Bro, hide.
They're coming for your basketball team and your shawties out there.
Exactly, bro.
And also they do have Marquise Chris too. They were able to keep him. All right, so moving on. Next we have a really interesting team. I'm not even sure, even talking right now, how I feel about this team. We got the Houston Rockets. They're able to get John Wall in a trade from your Wizards. They did sign Kenyon Martin Jr., obviously son of Kenyon Martin, great NBA player. Free agent signings, they were able to get DeMarcus Cousins. And they did obviously get Christian Wood, which I think those are two big pluses for them. Leaving players, they did trade away Robert Covington to Portland. Damari Carroll left. Tyson Chandler left. Jeff Green left. Austin Rivers left in free agency. And then obviously they traded Russell Westbrook away. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this team, dog. Last year they were a 4th seed. Unless John Wall's able to come back and kind of be the same player he was before, I just don't know. They obviously have James Harden still as of the making of this video. Who else they got? PJ Tucker. They were able to get obviously DeMarcus Cousins, which can kind of be their center now. So they actually have an actual center, which did not work. They have Eric Gordon still at the making of this video. I think they'll be like a 6th seed. Maybe they'll stay at 4, but I just think they got worse significantly. I don't think trading Westbrook, at least for John Wall, was the right move. What do you feel as a Wizards fan of like how John Wall like is?
Well, it's gonna be very interesting. I have nothing but respect for John Wall and what he's done for the Wizards over the years that he's been here. He will forever be a legend for us. But this is a very interesting team. I mean, you do have the connection of DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall because they did go to Kentucky together. Maybe some way that duo can maybe, one thing you see, a lot of pieces of the team have something to prove. John Wall has something to prove. DeMarcus Cousins has something to prove. John Wall's been injured for an extended period of time. And people are like, yo, we don't know if John Wall's going to be like this, like he was anymore. Explosive to the basket. Absolutely dominant when he's on point. And also same for DeMarcus Cousins. Injury prone. Will he be the same type of offensive machine or defensive monster? A lot of points that need to be proven by these two. And with James Harden and with the chemistry and with like the tensions that be going between the organization and James Harden, I think this is what going to bring them their downfall this season. I think there's going to be bright spots throughout the season, but I don't think they're going to do much. I would do say they do make the playoffs, but as they look, but I would definitely maybe 6, 7 seed.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that they didn't get better. I think they got worse. I think they traded away Robert Covington, which was a big piece of them. Jeff Green was pretty solid as their guards. They lost their backup guard, Austin Rivers. I wasn't a fan of him anyways, but still, yeah, I'm just not a fan of what they did. I just think they got significantly worse. So, so moving on. Next team we got, which we'll probably not spend much time on because it's the Indiana Pacers. So, and no disrespect to them. So last year, the Pacers did end up being a 4th seed with winning 45 games and losing 28. So they did have only one draft pick, which was the 54th pick, which we won't name. They basically did nothing in free agency. And I mean, they traded away TJ Leaf. That's the only noticeable person. So they're literally basically the same exact team. I just don't know what they're doing. Because they're one of those like teams that like they're good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not a contender. They won't win a championship with the current team that they have. So I just don't know. Because they still have Victor Oladipo. They got the All-Star last season, Domantas Sabonis, and Miles Turner. Also Malcolm Brogdon. I just don't know. They're basically the same team, so you'd think they'd probably finish around the same, maybe. I'm just not a fan of what they're doing, and maybe Victor will get traded this season. I know he's in a lot of speculation towards last season. He only played 19 games last season, averaging about 14.5 points a game and 4 rebounds. So I'm not sure how I feel about the Pacers. I think they'll drop down to like a 7th seed and barely squeak in the playoffs. And then I think they'll probably try to rebuild after that because I just don't think the current team they have is good for anything. So that's kind of my opinion about them. You can give yours, but I just don't think that team's going to be good.
I mean, I don't really have much to add. I mean, just it seems like Victor Oladipo wants out, and I feel like once he gets out, they'll just be like, all right, there's really no point in playing, so they're just gonna blow up the whole team. I mean, they'll do that. Maybe they'll kind of just be like one of those, like, hey, we have talent, we have mediocre, we're fine getting 7th seed every year and being bounced in the first round, and a couple every time, a couple years, every couple of years they'll make make it to the second round.
Yeah,
but I don't really see them. It's tough being a small market team because you have the big market teams wanting guys like Victor Oladipo, and they have that the resources in order to do that. But when it comes to the Pacers and the small market team, it's very hard to acquire talent. So they're in a tough position, and we'll see what happens. I think that maybe I don't know if they trade Victor Oladipo, then to me I don't think they're making the playoffs. If they keep him, then maybe they squeak in, but it kind of just depends on how they go about this season when it comes to the questions that they have at hand.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns by that team, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. Shout out to Miles Turner though. He's a dog down there, and Sabonis, obviously Victor too, and Brogdon. The next team, obviously this team got absolutely flamed on social media after blowing a 3-1 lead and having 20-point leads in every single game. Of course, we're talking about the Los Angeles Clippers. So obviously they did lose in the second round to the Denver Nuggets after having a 3-1 lead. Paul George did in fact re-sign, even though he didn't have to. He did re-sign with the team. Kawhi Leonard, no one knows about what he's doing after this season. He could very well leave, and then then we don't know how the team's going to look. So they did re-sign Paul George to a big, massive contract. I like the signing in Luke Kennard they were able to get via trade from Detroit. Free agent signings, they, for whatever reason, got Nicholas Batum, who used to be good, but he only averaged 4 points a game last year. And obviously, the big thing I think they really got was they signed Serge Ibaka, which I think was a big plus for them. Players leaving, Landry Shamet obviously left from a trade with Brooklyn. They also lost JaMychal Green. They lost the sixth man of the year in Montrezl Harrell. And that's basically it. So I don't know where this team stands either. Obviously last year finishing a 2 seed with 49 wins. I think that the team got slightly worse, not terribly worse, but slightly, because they still have their kind of like core lineup and like, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Patrick Beverly, who, he's a good defensive player. Unless you're Russell Westbrook. And then you got Marcus Morris Sr., obviously Reggie Jackson still. So I think this team will drop 1 seed. I think they'll probably finish around the 3rd seed. And I don't have this team advancing to the finals at all. You can give your prediction in a second. I think this team will be probably, I think they'll make it to the Western Conference Finals this next season, but I don't have them beating the Lakers at all. So I think they got just slightly worse. So that's kind of my thoughts on how the Clippers look this season.
Mm-hmm. They definitely took a step back this offseason, especially the loss of Montrezl Harrell to the Lakers.
Yep.
This has always just been the big question of the Clippers. Like they always have, and they've had for a while. It's fair to say that they've had good teams, solid built teams with talent on it that can make a deep run. But the lurking line is they can't get it done. They can't get over that hump. And the hope was last year that bringing in Kawhi and Paul George was going to do that for them. But as you look into the playoffs, somehow they had different ideas. This, I think, I think it's good that they locked down Paul George. He's a great player, and hopefully maybe he, turns off that he turns away from being playoff P and actually plays like the playoff George where, playoff George. I mean, now the Paul George, we know how he can play.
Mm-hmm.
And, Kawhi just being Kawhi. And definitely that addition to Serge Ibaka, the dude's just a menace.
Yeah.
Around the paint. Like if I was playing basketball and I was trying to go for I would nowhere near go to the paint if Serge Ibaka was under there. Like they have a good team this year. Like they've kept that talent going, but it's just how are they going to go about that when the rubber meets the road? What's going to happen to the Clippers? Are they going to fold? Are they actually going to prove people wrong?
That's good. Yeah. Should be interesting. Ibaka averaged about 15 points a game last season for the Toronto Raptors. Paul George took a little step back last season. Then his MVP caliber season he had the year before. Last year he averaged about close to 22 points a game. So, and obviously you have, the only thing with me with Paul George is that the last several seasons he's just been extremely underperforming in the playoffs. Like he had the time last year against the Nuggets, I think in game 6 or 7, where he hit the side of the backboard, and when he shot the corner 3, that's his. And then he has a top 5 most disrespectful nickname I've ever heard in Pandemic P. So that's a yikes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do. I just don't think they'll beat the Lakers. So So the next team we do got is the defending champions. This team did obviously win the whole thing. The Los Angeles Lakers beating the Miami Heat in 6 games. So this team, in my opinion, before even naming their players, significantly got better. They were able to get Dennis Schroeder from a trade with Oklahoma City Thunder. They did sign the big man from Toronto, Marc Gasol, and Montrezl Harrell, and they also signed Wesley Matthews from Milwaukee. They did trade Danny Green away to Philadelphia, and they traded JaVale McGee. Dwight Howard left in free agency. Avery Bradley left. Rondo left, and they did not re-sign J.R. Smith or Deion Waiters. So this team somehow got better. I don't know how. Like, even just naming they did sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope too. They still got Alex Caruso, and they signed up Anthony Davis again, Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell. Of course, they still have LeBron for at least another season. They got Kyle Kuzma, Wesley Matthews, Markieff Morris. They re-signed, and Dennis Schroeder. I don't see how this team. I don't see how they got better, but they did. They got they got the 6th man of the year from their biggest rival, the Clippers, and my opinion, this team goes back to back. I don't see what team in the league can honestly stop the Lakers this season. Unless obviously injuries happen, the Lakers are going back to back in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I'm still kind of baffled on how it was literally just a swap. Like, you lose JaVale McGee, you bring in Marc Gasol.
Mm-hmm.
You lose a Dwight Howard, you bring in Montrezl Harrell. You lose Rajon Rondo, and you bring in Wesley Matthews, and you bring in what's his face?
Dennis Schroeder.
Mm-hmm. Who can say that he's definitely like a Rajon Rondo type, but he can shoot. Like, they just bag shooters on the team.
Facts. He was also a runner-up for 6th man of the year last year.
I mean, it's like, bro, and it was kind of obvious that they were going to get rid of Danny Green, because this dude went from, San Antonio hitting nothing but, greens to going to Toronto, I think he literally just sat in the corner and watched Kawhi win the championship. I'm not too sure why he was there. And then he went to the Lakers and he could hit a thing. And, it blows my mind sometimes. I was like, why? Like, how? Like, what happened? But they got rid of him, like, yeah, let's just get Dennis Schroeder. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, Green took a big setback last year. 10%.
He definitely did. And Dennis Schroeder got, definitely a great replacement for Danny Green, and to kind of, smooth out that lineup. It's going to be it's going to be exciting to see them. And I definitely agree they have that opportunity, that aspirations to go back to back.
Yeah. Brown might be getting his 5th ring next season, tying Kobe. So the next team we got, this team is the Memphis Grizzlies. Last season they did finish the 9th seed, and they did that little 1 game, or I think it was 3 games, but playing tournament with the Portland Trailblazers, which they did end up losing. So their offseason looked like this. They did go ahead and acquire Mario Hezonja from Portland. They did sign a couple people from the draft. They didn't get anyone crazy from like free agency. They did lose Josh Jackson. He went to Detroit, and that's about it. And so this team is looking just as good as it did last year. They got guys obviously like John Morant. They got Jaren Jackson coming back another season. They do got Jonas Valanciunas coming in. Should be interesting to see if Justin Winslow can do good at all. And I don't know if this team, they might be able to sneak in an 8th seed. Just because out of all 8 teams that made the playoffs last year, I think that the Thunder and the Trailblazers would be the 2 that could not go back. Obviously, because I think the Warriors are going to go back to the playoffs. But it's good. I'm really excited to see how Ja Morant's going to play next season. I love him. He's an extremely explosive guy. And I think he'll have another breakout season. He'll probably end up getting better than his rookie season, which was last year. He did win Rookie of the Year as well. Last year, he averaged about 18 points a game. He obviously needs to get his 3-pointers a little better, which maybe he does this season. But yeah, I'm really just excited to see how John Morant's going to be playing.
Yeah, that's really the only poignant aspect of the Memphis Grizzlies right now is John Morant. I only watch them when I can for John Morant because he was such an explosive player last year, and he just had a bunch of like those straw dropping like how did they do that moments.
Yeah.
Hopefully he continues and maybe he pushes his team to to play better than they actually are.
I feel that. So the next team we got is the Miami Heat. This team obviously did lose to Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games in the NBA Finals. They had 1 draft pick, which they were assigned the 20th overall pick. They got basically one good guy in free agency was with Avery Bradley, which will help their defensive abilities out a lot with the guards. He did opt out of the bubble due to the Roro virus. And then they did have Jay Crowder leave, which I didn't like that happening. They did lose Derrick Jones Jr., a very explosive player. But outside of that, they got the same exact team. Players look out for, of course, you got Bam Adebayo, Avery Bradley's coming in, Jimmy Butler, Goran Dragic. They have Maurice Harkless, Tyler Hero. They still have Udonis Haslem more as a veteran presence. They got a little washed up Andre Iguodala, Myers Leonard. They did get Kendrick Dunn coming in here. And, of course, one of your favorite players, they got Kelly Olynyk, Duncan Robinson. So,
dude out of here.
So last season, the Miami Heat did finish a 5 seed. I can see them going up to maybe a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they stay at a 5. I'm not sure how that kind of fares, but I have them doing the same thing. I do not think they'll go to the NBA Finals, though. I think they benefited a lot with the bubble. I think teams like the Nets could beat them, which would be tough, but I think my Celtics, I'm a little biased, but I think if we get another run at them, I think that we would beat them with the guys that we got in. And yeah, I think they'll be the same team. I just don't think they'll go to the finals this year. I'm looking forward to Tyler Hero, though, and how he'll play this upcoming season. Because in his rookie season, that man balled out big time. He averaged about 14 points a game, and that even improved in the bubble, along with another Michigan native of mine, Duncan Robinson, who kind of took off a lot last year too, with a lot of good plays. So what do you thoughts about how the Heat are looking this season?
My thing on the Heat is if Jimmy Butler can continue to lead this team how he's been leading this team, they can write their own destiny because they are built well. You have Goran Dragic, who absolutely popped off in the bubble for them, and also just in general, you have the emergence of Bam Adebayo. He's continuing to get better. Tyler Hero. It's crazy to think about. This dude is he's a 2nd-year player now.
Yeah,
like because some of the stuff he was doing, like this dude's been here a couple of years. There's no way he's still a rookie. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Iggy does, because he definitely was a little washed up, and you could see it. Like, the age catching up to him a little bit. He's like, man, I can't run like that anymore. Like, but it's definitely this is a solid team. The team that you cannot leave open.
Facts.
That's one thing. If you leave open, you will get. Duncan Robinson is a different breed. I think, honestly, I think he was born. A guy was like, you were born to make 3-point shots. Because there's some bro, this dude could hit off a screen with 3 dudes in his face and just hit it like it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this dude has an absolute great release, and he's great, bro. This team is good, like good. They're good, and they can. The sky is the limit for the Heat right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they are too. I love Jimmy Butler's story of how, age of 13, he was homeless, and then how he turned that into being an NBA star and never gave up on his dream is definitely a great story to follow. So, and shout out to all the Jimmy Butler haters who hated them last season and said he couldn't lead the team. He did definitely prove them wrong and went out and balled out. So the next team that we have, which is the Milwaukee Bucks. So they were able to trade and get Drew Holiday. They signed a couple draft picks in free agency. They were able to get guys like DJ Augustine, Torrey Craig, Nick Stauskas, Bobby Portis, who is going to be good. Players they got traded from. They traded Eric Bledsoe and George Hill to the Pelicans. Wesley Matthews did leave in free agency. Kyle Korver left. Robin Lopez left. And Marvin Williams, of course, retired. So obviously the Bucks last season were the number 1 seed overall in the entire NBA, finishing with 56 wins and 17 losses. Giannis did go ahead and capture both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. So, in my opinion, with the Milwaukee Bucks, they shouldn't worry about the regular season as much as they've been doing. Like, if they go to a 2 or 3 seed, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my gosh, they got worse, because I think that they should worry strictly on playoffs. Because in recent seasons with Giannis, teams were like the Raptors and the Heat are able to build walls and contain Giannis, and him having an inability to shoot the ball makes it hard for his team to win. And obviously, they still have Chris Middleton as well, but I think that it's tough. The farthest they got with Giannis, I think so far has been they got to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago when they lost to the Raptors with Kawhi. I like Drew Holiday over Eric Bledsoe. He's better defensively and he's better offensively still too. I just don't know. This team could make it out the Eastern Conference. I could also see them losing again to the Heat if they play them though, because the Heat are just that good. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how they got a little bit better, but I still don't think they'll be over the hump. And they were able to sign Giannis to the biggest contract in NBA history, the Supermax deal. That was worth the five-year contract worth like $228 million, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. I just don't think this year is it. I also don't think Chris Middleton is worthy to be the second best player on a championship contender, in my opinion. I'd put him probably a third. And even if he was, they need more shooters around Giannis still.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I don't know, it was to me, it threw me off this offseason for the Milwaukee Bucks because you get rid of George Hill, Eric Bledsoe, Wesley. You traded them away and then lost Wesley Matthews to free agency. Kyle Korver, Robin Lopez. Who else? I mean, and then the only really thing you're able to acquire was Drew Holiday and then draft picks, and then they got DJ Augustine. I mean, just kind of low level guys. Like, I mean, I think the Milwaukee Bucks are definitely, they have to be careful because they could go into a cap like very hard place because they put a lot of money into Chris Middleton. They just put another Supermax deal into Giannis. I think they had to get some of these guys off the books because if it would have come to contract time, they wouldn't have enough money to pay all these guys. So it's very interesting to see. We'll see what happens. I don't think they're gonna do much. And I think I definitely agree with you, Trey, in saying that they need shooters. They need to be able to space the floor because the Heat locked down Giannis immediately, and he wasn't able to outlet pass anyone. Like, they don't have like that. Those couple guys were like, you can't leave him open, and it makes Giannis even more dangerous because he has those options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should be interesting to see what they're able to do. I think it is really cool for the NBA though that a small market team like Milwaukee is able to keep a giant, like one of the best players in the league with Giannis, And I think it was good that he didn't leave and go to a team like the Heat and form another super team. Although that's also good for the league. I think it's good for small market teams like the Thunder and the Pelicans, teams like that. So it's like they know that they can possibly keep a star. So it's a good thing Milwaukee was able to re-sign him to the deal they did. Next up, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They did trade and get Ricky Rubio. So they're reuniting with Ricky Rubio. They obviously had the first overall pick where they were able to sign Anthony Edwards, who I think he's going to be a stud. Didn't really sign anyone crazy in free agency. The players leaving, they lost James Johnson, they lost Alan Crabb, and Evan Turner, and basically got everybody else back. So they'll be able to get a full year with D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and that team as well. So Russell last year for the Timberwolves only played in 12 games before obviously NBA went on a hiatus. But in those 12 games with the Timberwolves, he was able to average about 22 points a game in 12 games, which I think is absolutely obviously great for a team who is looking to be better and improve. Last season, obviously being one of the worst teams in the league, winning about 19 games. I think that they'll do a little bit better. I don't think they'll make the playoffs yet because I don't think they're ready. But give it 3 seasons, I think this team could be really, really scary in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't really followed Minnesota like that, but with the acquirement of D'Angelo Russell and also drafting Anthony Edwards, this could be a team that you have to look out for in the years to come. Because, D'Angelo Russell could take over games. Karl Anthony Towns, when he wants to, can take over games. And, we haven't seen anything from Anthony Edwards yet. So it's a lot of excitement and hype around the Minnesota.
For sure. Cat's coming off his best season of his young career. Also, shout out to Karl Anthony Towns. He lost his mom due to the Roro. So I know my heart goes out to him, and I feel for him going through that. So next team we got, a team I'm really, really looking forward to, is the New Orleans Pelicans. They were able to trade and get players like Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, also George Hill. They didn't do much outside of that. They didn't do anything in free agency, really. Players left. Obviously, Drew Holiday left. Okafor left as well. They did lose Derek Favors. And that's basically it. They also lost the 3-point shooter from Purdue, Etuan Moore. And they got the whole team. They obviously got Zion Williamson, who ESPN thought it was nice to rank him with the 19th overall player in the league, which...
That was so stupid.
I don't think he's near that yet. The thing with like young players is that people overhype them so much to the point where if they don't turn out anywhere near, they call them a bust. Versus like in the olden days, Charles Barkley, one of the best big dudes of all time at the power forward position, he didn't even start after he got drafted by the Sixers overall with I think the number 1 pick. And then granted he was on a stacked team back then in the 80s, but still, I think they're overhyping him to the point where if he doesn't perform and get like 25 points a game, people are going to start calling him a bust, which I don't like. Also, I think I hope he lost a little bit of weight. I haven't checked him out yet. Yeah. But I mean, in 24 games, he did fantastic though. He averaged 22.5 points a game. He shot 43% from 3, which is really good. Will be interesting to see if he continues that. And I think the sky's the limit for the kid. So last year the New Orleans Pelicans did finish with 30 wins. I have them going to like an 11 seed. I still have them missing out on the playoffs. But just because the Western Conference is tough, but I think they'll get a little better. This is also a team that in the coming years, in like a year or two, we'll be able to see. They still got Lonzo Ball, so we'll be able to see kind of how the team fares overall.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very like I would compare this team to Atlanta Hawks. very young, and a lot of upside.
Yeah.
But there is some veteran presence, especially with JJ Redick. I'm glad they kept him on board. Like I'm a big fan of JJ Redick.
Good podcast too, he has.
Zion, yes, he does. Zion, dude can just stay off the Twinkies
The Big Macs.
and just be himself, bruh. If he can just not the Charles Barkley, after he retired,
Yeah.
then he'll be fine. Then I think he can be that consistent player who's putting up 22, 25 a night. Lonzo, it's come to find out that he's a very good distributor. The solid piece they can have. I think they definitely strengthened it where they added Eric Bledsoe and George Hill. Adds variety to that position. I mean, but also we're also forgetting here Brandon Ingram.
Yes.
I mean, Brandon Ingram showed last year that like this can be, he can emerge as a superstar on this team, and this can be his team that he leads. Brandon Ingram has all the capabilities to do that, and he showed that last year, and I hope that he continues with that because, he definitely just got dumped when it came to the Lakers, for the trade with AD.
Yeah.
I think LeBron was just looking around like, yeah, you get out of here. And he's definitely emerged. He's made the best of this situation. And I would say maybe, definitely agree. They're going to definitely be in the lower half of the Western Conference because it's the Western Conference. But I think maybe throughout this regular season, they can maybe pull off some upsets and play really good basketball. So
that's good. I'm excited to see Ingram coming off his best season, averaging 24 a game. So be interesting to see. The next team, I won't even have you comment on this team. I'm just going to read out what happened to him. We got probably the worst team in the NBA this upcoming season. We got the New York Knicks. So they got the 8th overall pick. They were able to get Toppin and the 25th overall pick. They did sign Alex Burks, which is cool, and they also got Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and Austin Rivers, as well as Nerlens Noel. Players they got that left the team that are probably glad they left the team is Taj Gibson got waived, and Marie Harkless left for Miami, which I'm sure he's popping champagne bottles for, as well as Bobby Portis. And they have the same group of people there. I am interested to see, though, how RJ Barrett's going to be going in this season. I also think Mitchell Robinson is also a big plus side to them because he had a fantastic year. So, yeah, I won't have you comment on them.
I would also say one thing.
What's that?
Yeah. I don't know how you can be this bad of a team and still some way end up with the 8th pick in the draft. I feel so bad for Knicks fans, bruh.
Yeah, that's a yikes.
Yeah, you got the 8th pick in the draft after you that bad.
Won 21 games, and you're getting like a 6 through 9 pick every year. Like, you just can't rebuild off of that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, them players can be pretty solid, but I mean, usually you're trying to get, at least top 3, which a couple of years ago they got number 4, but yeah, it's a yikes. The next team we got on the list is a team that's obviously went into rebuild mode, which is Oklahoma City Thunder. They acquired Trevor Ariza as well from a trade with technically, I guess, Houston. Apparently George Hill is actually on the Thunder, so my apologies for that. He got traded to Milwaukee to New Orleans, and then they traded him directly to the Thunder. They did get Al Horford, which Philadelphia fans are probably excited about. They did have the 17th overall pick, as well as the 34th and the 37th. Free agency, they didn't do anything because they're rebuilding. They obviously traded away Chris Paul away. They traded Dennis Schroeder away. They traded Steven Adams away, Gallinari. So this team went into absolute full rebuild. So I guess I probably won't have you talk much about it because not much you can say because they'll probably be the absolute worst team in the league next season, along with the Knicks. So we'll move on directly into the Orlando Magic. They were able to sign Cole Anthony as a draft pick obviously signing him. They signed guys like Dwayne Bacon. And they had guys like DJ Augustine leave. And I'm not sure how much you want to talk about the Magic on. Last season they did finish the 8th seed and got 1 win out of the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't have them going to the playoffs again. They're going to be one of the bottom feeders in the already garbage Eastern Conference that they are in. You have anything to add to the great Orlando Magic team?
I mean, it's definitely gonna take some magic for them to be decent this year. Even though in a top heavy Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. A team actually we can use some of our breath on, and it's worth it, is the Philadelphia 76ers. So they were able to get some sharpshooters. You could debate on one of them being a sharpshooter anymore, but you have Steph Curry, obviously the younger brother of Stephen Curry. And then the questionable one obviously would be Danny Green. All of Lakers fans, talk about Danny Green, about them. So players they're able to sign was they got Dwight Howard in free agency, which I think that's a plus for them. He can play kind of the backup center role behind Joel Embiid. They were able to get rid of Al Horford's absolute garbage contract. They did actually trade Josh Richardson away. Alex Burks left on free agency. And that's about it for all the players. So I think they got better. They were able to surround Embiid and Simmons with 3-point shooters, kind of like the team had, I think, in like 2017-ish, when they had Marco Bellinelli and J.J. Redick and players like that. Last season, the Sixers were a 6th seed, and they got bounced out in the first round by my Boston Celtics. They finished with 43 wins and 30 losses. I have them being around the same exact seed, a 6th seed, maybe a 5 seed. I think they'll be better teams, but I think they'll approve again, and I think that they'll end up losing in the first or second round, and then probably end up trading Ben Simmons, is my opinion on this team.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that need to be answered this season for the 76ers. Is one, the relationship between Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and how they're going to play, and also whose team is this? Is this Joel's team? Is this Ben's team? One thing I mean, honestly, with the shooters that they got, I think is good. Of course, the only thing really in question for me is Danny Green, if he's going to go back to this time where he can actually shoot an open 3.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude Danny Green is now the dude at like the gym where you like, yo, back off, he can't shoot. Like that's the type of Danny Green we're dealing with right now, and we don't know if he's gonna go back to that, dominant 3-point shooter. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with this team. We don't know if it's gonna perform like they have been. I mean, I don't know if Ben Simmons was just joking when he said he can now shoot 3s. I mean, this guy sometimes plays like my career player when I don't know how to shoot, and I just do screens and take it to the hoop every time. That's really his game, and I'm not gonna be like that one guy. I forgot who it was that said he's not a good half court player, but I would like to see improvement from Ben Simmons in this game. Him able to actually hit a mid-range shot consistently. Because this is like the 70. Like, think about it. A couple years ago, the 76ers were like, "Yo, this team's going to the finals," and now they're just like, "Are they actually going to be good this year?" Which is sad to see, because they did all this tanking for this team to get this talent to still have these question marks.
Yeah, they gotta have a better chance of getting married next year than Ben Simmons being decent from 3. So. We'll see about that.
Yeah, bro.
I really do like Ben, though. I mean, he averaged 16 points a game last season with 8 rebounds and 8 assists. So he's obviously not a terrible player. It's just that he needs to develop a jump shot. There's no other thing about that. He has to develop a jump shot, or that team is going to continue to struggle unless they can turn on even more shooters around them. Also, when I look at Embiid, I think he needs to stop being soft, for one. I think he's a little soft, and he's worried about showboating and, being the funny guy too much to the point where it's affecting his game. And I mean, Embiid averaged about 23 points last season, which was 4 fewer than the season prior. He played in about 51 out of 51 games. 51 games he started and played all 51, obviously. There were some games in time he did miss. Ben Simmons was injured the whole entire playoff bubble. So take that into consideration as well. But yeah, we'll see where they kind of go from here. Now, interesting team. We have the Phoenix Suns. So the Phoenix Suns, obviously the biggest thing that they had happen was they signed Chris Paul, actually from a trade from the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then they were able to sign Jay Crowder, which I think is a big thing as well. They got Etuan Moore, which is a good shooter. They did lose Ricky Rubio. They obviously traded Kelly Oubre away to the Golden State Warriors. And that's all they did. So this could be a hot take. I think the Suns could make the playoffs next year. They were a 10th seed last season, going 34-39. They were the only undefeated team in the bubble too. Don't forget about that.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I think they went 10-0. But Chris Paul is that good still. Like, you've seen the ESPN and everyone gave like the Thunder like a 0.2% chance or whatever to make the playoffs last season. And they did that. They pushed the Rockets to 7 games. I think Chris Paul is that good that he can push this team to a playoffs. Like, I want to be surprised if he did. It'd be tough because there's a lot of good playoff teams out there. Chris Paul last year did average about 18 points a game with 5 rebounds and about 7 assists. Yeah, I mean, I add that with Devin Booker. They have to stop double teaming Devin Booker now because of Chris Paul, his presence and his veteran leadership in the locker room. Add that with Jay Crowder, and then I think DeAndre Ayton's even going to get better because Chris Paul is that good. He makes other players look a lot better than typically they usually are. So I can see the Suns kind of one of those teams that can sneak into like an 8th seed. What about you? What do you think about the team?
I think, that's kind of generous, but I mean, it's Chris Paul we're talking about, who definitely proved everybody wrong last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did again with the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker really came in and showed out, especially in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Dude was crazy and carried his team throughout that, and now he has help with Jay Crowder, and Chris Paul, and hopefully the continual progression of DeAndre Ayton's game. And I was kind of upset you missed this, but like their draft pick, Jalen Smith, I'm a Maryland basketball fan, and I know it's a little biased, but Jalen Smith at Maryland was a very dominant underneath the hoop, and he could get you with the mid-range sometimes when he was open. A very dominant rebound and great defensive guy. I think that's a good guy behind. Give you good minutes off the bench. I'm not too sure how his game is going to translate to the NBA, but definitely a good, solid guy that you can have coming off the bench and give good support to the starting cast.
That's true. No, it'll be interesting to see because like Ayton averaged 18 points and 12 rebounds last season. Obviously rounding the numbers up a little bit, but he had a great season last year. Devin Booker averaged 26.6 points a game. In back-to-back seasons. Like, it should be interesting. He played in 70 games this season. DeAndre Ayton only played in 35, mostly because he had a little injury, and then he also missed the first 25 games of the season due to some drug use. So, should be interesting to see how that team will come together. Coming towards the end here, we got the final 5 teams here. So, the next team we got, of course, is the Portland Trailblazers. I'll say off the wrap, I think they got better. So they were able to get Robert Covington in the trade from Houston, and they're able to bring back Enes Kanter in the trade via Celtics of Boston. They didn't do really much in free agency. They signed Derek Jones Jr., which would be a cool explosive player kind of in the regular season. They got rid of Trevor Ariza, which I thought was good. They got rid of Mario Hezonja, and they didn't lose any key players. They got Hassan Whiteside left, but I wasn't terribly mad with that. I mean, his defensive presence will be missed, but I think they'll be fine. Players will be getting back from injury. We'll see Zach Collins coming back, who I think he missed the entire bubble almost. After like one game. Rodney Hood's coming off of that Achilles injury, so he'll be back, the sharpshooter. They obviously got Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Yukov Nurkic. They able to re-sign Carmelo Anthony.
You want to say that again?
Yusuf Nurkic. There we go.
This dude tried to slide like Continuing on,
try to slide it in like no one would notice. I probably have a lot of stuff like that I'd said during this podcast. And then Gary Trent Jr., which I really like too, off the bench. So this team last year obviously lost to the Lakers in the first round of the NBA playoffs. They were an 8th seed. Again, there's like 4 teams I think that can reach that 7th, 8th seed, and this is one of the teams that I think will reach one of those seeds, or maybe in the 9th seed and get into the play-in tournament. But this team, obviously, I don't have this team competing and winning a championship. And even if they go to the playoffs, I don't see this team winning in the first round at all, no matter if they play the Lakers, the Clippers, or the Nuggets, assuming they'll be the top 3 seeds again. So that's kind of my opinion. I think they'll be a good team. I think Lillard will make the playoffs. I think Carmelo will do his role he did last season, and they'll be exciting to watch and a hard team to beat. But I don't see this team doing much outside of a first round exit.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no argument there. I would say one thing, Damian Lillard is just gonna do Damian Lillard.
Yeah, beast mode.
I think that's the really thing I can say about this. I mean, there's really nothing exactly. Because he's usually really one that has been carrying this team and has been, pushing this team to the playoffs. And I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, that's facts. Also with ESPN's list, they had Damian Lillard over Stephen Curry, which I think people forget how good Stephen Curry was because it's been about a year almost. He got injured, I think October 31st. I did a video on last year when he broke his hand and hasn't played until yesterday night. And people forget Curry is that dude. He is the best shooter of all time. He was doing logo shots, just like Lillard was. People just have a lot of recency bias. But Lillard's definitely a great player. Probably top 10 in the league right now. So next team we got is the Sacramento Kings. Last year, the Sacramento Kings finished with a 31-41 record, which handed them with the 12th seed of the playoffs, or in the standings, and they missed the playoffs. They did have the 12th overall pick, which they were able to sign, obviously, all 3 of their draft picks. They did get Frank Kaminsky from Phoenix and Glenn Robinson III from Philadelphia and Hassan Whiteside from Portland. Players leaving, which are kind of big L's, in my opinion, is Bogdan Bogdanovic. He had left and went to the Atlanta Hawks. Kent Bazemore left the team, and he went to the Golden State Warriors. Yogi Ferrell obviously didn't get re-signed, and Harry Giles went to Portland, and Alex Len left and went to Toronto.
Another Maryland player right there. Shout out.
Yes, sir. Shouts. Too bad he's not good. This team, I think they'll probably be around where they were now. I mean, I have them probably exactly a 12 seed again. I like Buddy Hield. I like De'Aaron Fox. Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley. I like obviously the addition of Hassan Whiteside, who averaged over 2 blocks a game last season. Great defensive presence, obviously, but the team does the West is too stacked, and I don't think this team has enough to do anything crazy in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna see probably just a De'Aaron Fox show,
which isn't bad.
Yeah. Which I kind of thought his extension was a little premature, with the amount of money they gave him.
Hmm.
But I think that's just the market, and they didn't want him leaving because he is a great player and he showed that. And they have a solid cast. You have Hassan Whiteside coming back to Sacramento. But yeah, very interesting team, but they're not going to do much when you have a loaded West.
Yeah, just unfortunate. Yeah, Fox is going to continue to get better in his short 3-year NBA season. Last year being his best, averaging about 21 points a game, 7 rebounds or 4 rebounds, sorry, and 7 assists. So maybe in the future, Kings, you'll have to get a couple more assets on your team. Next team we have is a team, the San Antonio Spurs, who missed the playoffs for the first time in 22 seasons, which is crazy. This team finished with a 32-39 record, which gave them the 11th seed. In the West, they had the 11th overall pick and the 41st. They didn't do anything at all in free agency, and they lost Marco Bellinelli and Forbes, and basically the same exact team as it did last year. And I don't see the team improving at all. By the way, I don't know if you've seen their game last night, but DeMar DeRozan, that dude's hair grew like crazy.
Oh, it did.
I don't know if you've seen that, but that was crazy.
I think he's trying to be like trying to be like Jimmy Butler and not get a haircut for the next 3 months.
Something like that. It wasn't looking bad though. I mean, shout out to DeMar. Really. Another thing is he got extremely underrated on the ESPN's list of top 100 players. He should not have been in the 80s at all. He's better than a lot of the players on the list. So shout out to DeMar. You got anything to add about the Spurs? Shout out to Rudy Gay too.
I mean, the Spurs are just an aging team. I mean, they literally still have LaMarcus Aldridge and Rudy Gay and Patty Mills and who else? Let's see. I mean,
Chauncey Murray,
Tyler Zeller. I mean, these are guys that I remember Patty Mills in 2013 when Danny Green lightened it up against the Heat.
Yes, sir.
Rudy Gay when he played for Memphis. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge for his years in Portland. I mean, like this team is aging, and I think they're just kind of holding on to these assets. Be like, hey, we can get by, but I think it's going to come to a point where the Spurs have to think about, restarting this. There's really nothing to see other than DeMar DeRozan as the future.
I can agree with that. I think this season at some point they should look to trade LaMarcus Aldridge. He's been slowly declining the last couple of years. He still averages 19, which is obviously really good. But I mean, this team, even if they were to somehow make the playoffs, obviously they'd probably get swept or at least a 5-game gentleman sweep. They do have a lot of cool young assets. I like Dejounte Murray and Derek White on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should look to trade DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. But although I think DeMarcus is in his last season with the team until free agency, which he might go back to the Raptors. We'll see about that. Who are actually our next team we're going to talk about is Toronto Raptors. They were able to sign a pretty decent role player in Aaron Baines. There's actually a Twitter page I follow that is dedicated to Aaron Baines highlights. It's kind of funny. He's a pretty cool dude. They did sign your boy from Maryland, Alex Len. Players leaving though, they did lose Marc Gasol, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Serge Ibaka, which I think those are big L's to the team. Definitely since they weren't able to get anyone back in return, which is why I think they'll slide down a little bit. So the Toronto Raptors finished with the second overall seed with 53 wins and 19 losses, and got bounced out in the second round by the Boston Celtics. I just think they'll be worse a little bit. They'll probably be like a 4 seed, maybe a 5. But I just think they got worse with losing their best big men and getting no one back in return for them.
Yeah, and I don't expect, spin move Siakam to kind of fill that void. Fred VanVleet probably is going to continue to do what he does. Kyle Lowry just being Kyle Lowry. Maybe the emergence of OG Anunoby, probably his progression to become just a better player overall. Aaron Baines is definitely a great guy to sign. More of, I would say, maybe like a just a slight fix. Maybe even like a band-aid to their big man. I mean, there's really not much you can do here. So it's kind of just seeing, are they going to take a step back? Is it going to be the same consistent play that they've had recently? Or maybe, I mean, you could even say that, well, we are mentioning before, what if they just, gearing up so they can bring back DeMar?
Yeah, I think that'd be good for him. I'm looking forward to see how Pascal Siakam's gonna do. He had a pretty underperforming NBA bubble when he came back.
Yeah,
but he did have his best season of his career last season, averaging about 23 points a game, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. So should be interesting to see how they will do. So final 2 teams now. It's been a while. We've been recording for about an hour and a half now. Final 2 teams. So we got the Utah Jazz. So a little bit about the Utah Jazz last season. The Utah Jazz finished with a 44-28 record and were a 6 seed and got bounced out of the first round by the Denver Nuggets in, I believe, 5 or 6 games. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was 7 because Nuggets came back from 3-1 deficit. So the Jazz blew a 3-1 lead. No one crazy in the draft as far as like top tier talent, I don't think. I mean, maybe, but so free agents are able to sign Derek Favors, which I like, and that's probably about it as far as that. Players that left the team, nothing crazy. I mean, Ed Davis, he got traded. And that's, I mean, Manuel Mudiay, but he didn't really do much at all. So they're basically the same team. I don't see much changing with them. I think Donovan Mitchell is going to continue to be, the star player that he is. Of course, last season he averaged about 24 points a game, which was the best of his career so far. 4 rebounds, about 4 assists. So I think they'll be basically the same as they did last year, and also a first-time All-Star last year too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say. The Utah Jazz have always been that team. Either they just absolutely suck, or they're competing for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell, the only bright spot. All the homies hate Rudy Gobert. He's just idiot, bro. Donovan Mitchell's gonna be, the spider. The dude's just continue what he do. I would definitely the replacement. The experiment with Mike Conley, especially in the playoffs, didn't really go well. I'm not sure how that's going to translate into this regular season.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely a interesting team, young team. They got Rudy Gobert still. So shout out to the Utah Jazz. So with the final team, finally, we got your team, the Washington Wizards, which may have pulled off one of the biggest finesses in recent history, trading for Russell Westbrook in exchange for the injured John Wall. This team did have the 9th overall pick, and they did get the point guard from Michigan State. I won't say his name because I don't like to talk about our little brothers, people like that. So in free agency, they were able to sign guys like Robin Lopez, and that's basically the only player most of you guys will actually even know. Players that left, obviously, John Wall was traded, and Shabazz Napier left. Gary Payton II left. And that's about it. I mean, they saw Bradley Beal. Last year, the Washington Wizards finished with a 25-47 record. They were invited to Orlando, where
I don't know why. They did. I don't know why.
Yeah, they might as well kept them at home. They didn't do much. I don't even. Did Bradley Beal even play at all?
Nah, he opted out.
Yeah, so that's a yikes. I don't blame him though, because he knew he was gonna get bounced out, even if they won somehow. Did the 8th seed. So what's your thoughts on your team, man? I want you to talk about this.
Well, I'm kind of going in depth with this from top to bottom because the Wizards on my team, bro. I just got a jersey recently. That joint coming in tomorrow, Bradley Beal jersey. But
ooh, nice.
First off, with the trade, like I said earlier, mad respect for John Wall, what he's done here, but I think we got the better end of the deal. We only really had it. It was really just a swap plus a first round, our next year first round pick. We got a kind of carbon copy, but a less injury prone when it comes to Russell Westbrook. I'm not sure how he's going to play because this is definitely not his team. This is Bradley Beal's team, and that was showed last year. He got scuffed for the All-Star team because this dude was dropping like 33 points consistently on a nightly basis, before the All-Star game. The pick of Denny, I'm really, really excited about. Guy from Israel, kind of showed a lot of hype. Big dude that can shoot the ball pretty well and play well underneath. And I really like the pick of Cassius Winston, good depth guy. Didn't like him in college because he was always scorch Maryland, because this dude would just come out of nowhere and throw a 3 up and somehow make it, and dude would take over games. I'm happy to have him on the team. Some of the free agent signings, nothing too crazy other than Robin Lopez. We kind of really have, in a sense, I enjoy the pickup of Robin Lopez because, in a sense, kind of like a real big man, or a better big man than we've had previously. I mean, I don't know if you can really say that Ian Mahimi and Thomas Bryant are, top tier big men. I mean, they're not at all. And for them to produce offense underneath the basket, you wouldn't mess so much. I mean, like, we let Ian Mahimi go. Like, the dude was not good.
Right.
Shabazz Napier, I'm kind of sad to see him go. He had moments where, when everybody else was injured, he would shine, dropping 20 points a game sometimes. Gary Payton, get out of here. He didn't really do much. Played the bench.
Gary Payton the second,
I'm excited.
by the way.
There's a lot of Gary Payton the second. His son. Definitely should have probably stuck to something else. But I'm just excited because there is a lot of young guys on this team that still need to progress, like Thomas Bryant, like Troy Brown, especially Rui Hachimura. He had a lot of problems last year being way too inconsistent because he would go from dropping 15, 5, and 2 to dropping 2 points on 10% of shooting and get nothing done. I hope that his game progresses. Ish Smith, I'm glad to have him back on the team, a good rotational guy. And also just, man, I just hope that Bradley Beal and Davis Bertans keep doing their thing. Bertans just can't miss, and Bradley Beal just do Bradley Beal type things. So, but I'm really interested to seeing the relationship between Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal and how that's going to correlate basketball-wise and throughout the season.
Yeah, should be. I mean, I'll probably watch him a little more now just because it'll be interesting. I like watching Westbrook play. Westbrook definitely had a pretty good season last year, averaging about 27 points a game, 8 rebounds and 7 assists. People don't realize he did get injured in the bubble, which kind of affected his game a lot when he was playing against the Lakers.
Definitely.
So he definitely that was his best season, at least points wise, since I think his MVP season. So
yeah,
shout out to the Wizards.
Yeah. And I think another thing, Russell Westbrook brings a different attitude when it comes to the game of basketball that the Wizards need, and kind of in a sense, a side leader to Bradley Beal, that co-leader that he needs. The guy that just brings the energy and everything. So we'll see, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them play. So my man Jake, we have been through all 30 NBA teams. It's been an hour and 45 minutes as we're talking now. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see how the team's going to be.
We only got the 22nd. We only got about 6 days more to the NBA season kicks off.
Yes, sir.
I hope it goes really well this season. I pray the Rona, at Rudy Gobert don't do anything stupid. And I'm just excited to watch basketball again because I enjoyed the bubble. That was one of my highlights of the quarantine.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll see what happens, bro. And thank you for inviting me on. This was fantastic. Love talking basketball and just sports in general.
Yeah, anytime, man. Just hit me up, and I'd love to having you. Hope you stick around for the podcast as I continue to do this and try to get somewhat of a schedule on here. So, but thank you guys. If you guys tuned in to the end of the video and the podcast, if you're on iTunes and Spotify, thank you guys so much. Make sure to go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Enforcer 2324 on Instagram and Twitter. I'm also on TikTok now. Just had my first TikTok at Mr. Enforcer Sports. So go ahead and follow me and share me some of them there. Jake, if you want to share any of your social media, feel free. If not, that's also cool as well.
And now that's fine. I don't got really thing that's popping right now. So yeah. Bro, go follow my boy Trey. You know, he's trying to do this, working hard at it. And I appreciate it for him. Just go give him like and subscribe on his channel as well. Go hit that follow button anywhere else. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. Well, thanks again for coming on to the podcast. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, and we will catch you another time. Goodbye.